Steve Dotto here from DottoTech.com, and you're listening to the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy from compassmedia.ie. Have fun storming a castle.
Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and thank you for joining me. This is the Social Media Talks podcast, brought to you by compassmedia.ie. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, and this is the podcast to help business owners who want to learn more about social media marketing. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at www.compassmedia.ie/social media talks podcasts. And we are looking forward to today's show. I'm going to be joined by Steve Dotto from Dotto Tech. And Steve is a social marketing expert and content marketer. And for the better part of 2 decades, between 1992 and 2010, Steve hosted and produced the nationally syndicated TV show called Dotto Tech, or as it was known in Canada, Dotto Data Cafe. And it was a how-to show teaching millions of Canadians about technology. He also hosted a weekly call-in technology show for 8 years and wrote a column for several newspapers in Vancouver as well. In 2012, Steve shifted his focus to online marketing and the online world, taking the Dotto Tech show to YouTube, where he has built up an international community of over 168,000 subscribers to the channel. He is also an international keynote speaker and speaks about online video marketing and the power of video, to name but a few of his keynotes. He is also one of the leading experts on YouTube, and he's also a blogger. And today we are going to be talking to Steve about online video marketing. So without further ado, I think we will transition straight over to the interview with Steve. Hi Steve, thanks for coming on the show today. Delighted to have you on. Now, I know you're a very busy man, so it's a real pleasure to have yourself on to talk all about online videos.
Well, I'm glad you invited me on.
And so, Steve, you might tell people, we've given people a brief introduction about you in the intro, but you might want to just fill us in and give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, I kind of born and raised in Vancouver, so I'm a Canadian, and for about 20 years I was in traditional television here in Canada. We produced and hosted a TV show on technology. We're teaching people how to use computers and tech. And then around 2010, the need for a show on broadcast television that covered kind of the same kind of content as was better covered on YouTube kind of had passed, and it was time for me to transition out of doing traditional broadcast. So I started, I kind of dabbled in the online space for a little while and settled on creating a YouTube channel, and I learned that as a part of creating a YouTube channel, you had to become a bit of a social marketing expert and a content marketer, and so over the last, I guess, 8 years now, I've been in the learning process of discovering this entire world of content marketing and YouTube and online video. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's, after you're in an industry for 20 years, you kind of know all the ropes. And in the traditional broadcast world, I kind of, I was a grizzled veteran, but I still feel like a bit of a newbie sometimes in the online space. Of course, the fact the space is changing almost every day doesn't take away from but it's made it fun, and it's been really rewarding. I mean, I love the direct connection and the community building aspects.
Yeah, and it really is. It's fantastic. And of course, your YouTube channel, it's absolutely phenomenal. And online video, I think, is so important in this day and age, and especially with regards to, when it comes to your marketing and I suppose your online courses, if you are doing them, or, your webinars to talk to people as well. And I think, as you say, there is a real connection there. With online video, you can't hide. So, you might give us some ideas of, if people are trying to actually start and do online videos, where would be the best place for them to be really starting off with?
I think it's worth, just before we even talk about the starting point, talking about just what online video looks like, because people kind of look at the word video and they think of it as a catch-all phrase. But video is, I kind of look at it like words. You use words everywhere. We use words on the page and paper, in poetry and in contracts and in scripts and in stories and in instruction manuals. And it's all how it's applied that determines the value of the copy that you're writing. Video is the same. People look at video and they think you're an online video guy, so they think Facebook video, they think webinars, they think streaming, they think YouTube. You really have to recognize each of the different delivery mechanisms and what it brings to the table, and to understand where video fits in it. On a global basis, video is, we are a video consuming generation. The world today loves video. I call it a fast track to relationships because, as you say, you can't hide. You get to see people's face, you get to hear their inflection, you get all of the different, we bring so many different senses to bear in order to determine and judge the value of the content that's being delivered to us. It takes a lot of work on both sides to get the same kind of impact from the written word. Crafting well-written copy takes a tremendous amount of time, and consuming it, reading it takes a lot of time. And over 50% of our content now is consumed on our smartphone, or around 50%. And text is terrible on the phone. It's a small format. It's just not conducive, whereas video is ideal for that. So if we kind of start with the overarching premise that video is probably the most effective communication medium that we can use in the online space, then we have to start thinking about the networks and where they're being delivered. Facebook video versus YouTube video. Those are the two kind of giants. The type of video you create for each and the narrative that can happen in it are totally different. Facebook video is interruptive. If you're it's stream, you're happening across a video in a stream, and it's interrupting whatever it is you're doing, even if you're just trying to waste time. So putting some sort of if I create a lot of how-to videos. If I was going to be doing a video on how to use Google Maps, well, the last thing that you don't care about that in Facebook. You're not because it's you're there to see funny cats or something like that. Whereas in YouTube, it's intentional. Almost every video you view in YouTube are because you started in the search bar, right? And so when you visit a video of ours in YouTube, it's with intent. So there's a whole different social contract that's assigned to right out of the gate. So when you're creating video, a lot of people think they create a video and they're going to put it on YouTube. They're going to put it on Facebook. They're going to throw it out on Twitter. They're going to put it on their blog or put it on their website. Well, you really have to think about the purpose of that video, and is it appropriate for that channel? A 10-minute tutorial on using Google Maps is entirely not appropriate in Facebook. It's entirely appropriate in YouTube. So that's I think for the, and I often kind of give this little narrative, tell this little story in speaking engagements, and it's amazing how heavy this message lands on an audience. Like people go, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." Most of us haven't thought of that because we just look at video as this great, this kind of this omnipresent thing. But when you start to kind of drill down into and look at it as the medium it is, I think then you can start to gain some control. Now, that's not dismissing the value of Facebook video or streaming video in any way, shape, or form. It's fantastic for list building, for reaching out, and for discovery, for awareness, and getting people to understand, your energy and who you are a little bit more. But, but the type of video that you create in a live stream, like if you were to use this podcast as a video, you could easily convert it into a video, or probably use it. And you might well be sharing them as videos as well. But again, Facebook wouldn't be the appropriate place for it, would it? It would be people that have subscribed to you. It would be when they're searching. There'd be other places that this sort of video would be appropriate. Now you can create a little digest. You can create a teaser and a promo video. That's okay in Facebook, but not actually delivering the content. So that's, and that's just talking about the content. We're not even talking about how you get it discovered and, how you play with the algorithm and how you discover and how you articulate your audience and all of those sorts of things that come into play as well.
And I suppose as well, when you're on Facebook, you're expecting to see something fast and easy to digest. Whereas if you do go to YouTube, you are going there for a reason. You're going there to find something, whether it be information, whether it be, your videos or whatever it may be. Like even with yourself, like the way you have Ask Dotto and the Dotto Tech, the series where you actually give them fantastic videos of how to do, because and I know myself, if I want to find out information, or if I find a new program on the internet, I'll say, right, okay, where's the first place I'm going to go to learn how to use this? It's YouTube, and I suppose it's as well as that, it's knowing what your audience is expecting of you on the different platforms. Yeah.
And so in knowing that's how you look for information, then if you follow a model, and so much of us in business, I'm a big fan of Marcus Sheridan, the sales line, and he's, he follows that mantra, they ask, you answer. And so if you're looking at growing your market, growing your community, building your business in some way, YouTube suddenly becomes just such an incredibly valuable platform, because not that it's a distribution platform, but it's the search engine side of it. Once you start ranking in YouTube search, all of your numbers change. When I started creating my YouTube channel and started working on it, it wasn't until I started ranking in YouTube that I started to have real success. But as soon as I started ranking in YouTube, that's where success came from. I always created good and compelling videos, and they were always, as I learned kind of to make them myself, the quality steadily improved. But it wasn't about the quality of the video or even the quality of the content. It was once YouTube trusted me as an authority and started ranking my videos in search for things like Evernote or for Gmail. And when people were looking for answers in that, all of a sudden, once I started seeing in the search engine that I was ranking, I was noticing my number of subscribers increasing, my views increased, and all that rising tide was just kind of floating my entire brand up. And I'd say probably, if I had to pick one single factor that was most relevant, it would be YouTube search.
And well, it is, what is it they say? It's the second biggest search engine in the world after Google.
And it's far more democratic than YouTube. You can't game the search engine in YouTube the way that you game, that way. You don't have black hat and white hat search in YouTube. You just basically, you follow some good principles. There are things that you can do. There's good practices that you follow, but there's no way to fool YouTube into saying your video is good if your video is not good. And YouTube is not going to rank your video if your video is not good. That's for the most part. I mean, there's lots of, right now we're hearing stories of YouTube having difficulties classifying videos around children's violence and all of that sort of stuff. But the bottom line is, for most of us, if we look at, kind of the straight and narrow, the business applications that we're talking about, there's really no way to, the best way to guarantee you're going to rank in YouTube videos is create good, compelling content and support it well.
And it's very true. And as well as that, like you have so many different options then as well when you do decide to do, as you say, on your online videos, like right across the board from, as you said earlier on, like from your blogs to your, your website. And
once you get comfortable with creating video, and I we've, as a part of my business, we teach people how to create some online video. And one of our list builders is a little program I put together saying creating online video in less time than writing a blog. Not everybody can create a video in less time than it takes them to write a blog on the same topic, but many of us can. And when you start to recognize the value of that asset, the value of creating an online video that you can then repurpose into your blog, that you can use in so many different ways, that is such a great calling card for you, for your brand, for your energy, for your personality, all of that in there. And it's so easy for your target audience to consume and make decisions on you based on watching a video, far easier than the investment they'd have to make if you'd written a blog. It really behooves us to kind of get our head around creating video and overcome the issues that we have. And there's only 3 issues people have around creating video. If you ask them, there are 3 universal truths. First of all, they think it's hard to do. Secondly, they think it's time consuming. And third, they think they look like a goober when they're on video. They don't like how they look. Or they're insecure. They don't think that they're good at video. So those are the 3 things that stop people from doing video. Now, as far as being difficult to do, that's a load of horse hawk. It's just, it's easy to create a video. Tools like ScreenFlow and Camtasia, you can learn to create video incredibly quickly. And we all have an eye for video already. We were raised with it. We understand it. So that's number 1. It's not that difficult to do. Time consuming, well, but we've already talked about the fact that I believe that you can create video in less time. Now, maybe not the first few times you do it, but once you get your head around it, it should be more cost efficient as far as your time spent. And even if it takes the same amount of time as creating a blog or writing content, it's still so much more repurposable because you can backwardly engineer. Just by getting a transcript, you can get a written piece from the video, but you've got so many different places you can share. And the last thing is, when people are concerned with how they look or how they appear in video, or they're insecure, this is just an insecurity issue. And first of all, you have to learn to give yourself the same grace as you give others. Like when I say something stupid in this webinar, or if I make a little bit of a mistake, there isn't a single person out there that's going to go, "Oh, Dotto's such a moron."
Yeah.
And the only time that people are going to be bothered by it are if I'm bothered by it. We don't judge people, but instead we're sympathetic towards them if they're feeling uneasy. When you watch a speaker on stage who forgets what they're going to say next, they have a brain fart, they forget. If they are visibly shaken by that, the entire audience is sympathetic and empathetic towards that, and that creates that emotion. If it doesn't bother them, if they go, "Geez, I forgot what I was going to say," and then somebody in the audience shouts out with it, "Oh yeah," and the next thing, and they go on, and it doesn't bother the person on stage a bit, then it doesn't bother the audience a bit. Yet so many of us, if we had that brain fart on stage, would go, "Oh geez, I blew it. and we judge ourselves so harshly when we would never judge anybody else through the same lens.
Yeah.
It's the exact same in video. If you stumble, if you don't look perfect, if you if you stutter a little bit like I do, if it bothers you, then you have to take a good hard look at yourself and say, does it bother you when Dotto does it, or does it bother you when Alan does it? No. So does it mean that we're better, or that they love us more than they love themselves? The bottom line is you've got to give yourself the same grade. So taking that plunge and being able to distance yourself from your ego and your insecurities in order to get comfortable with video. Now, I know everybody can't do it, but if you can do it, oh my gosh, it's going to just open up so many more doors for you in so many different ways.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And as you say, it is about, I think a lot of people have this, this preconceived idea of where they're going, oh my God, I can't get in front of the video and whatever. What we would do is when we're training with people here in Compass, what we do is we would say to them, you do a lot of what we do on social media and a lot of what we do online equated to what you do in real life. And if I'm to meet you in the street, I'm not going to be too worried if I make a mistake or whatever. So, what's the real, there really is no difference whether you do it online or offline. So getting past that, I think everyone then starts to get a bit more comfortable in what they're doing as well.
And probably thank goodness people don't get past it very easily. Otherwise, we wouldn't have work, would we?
Exactly. That is the other side of it as well. But and I totally see your point there. And we spoke with Vivica Van Rossen only last week, and we were talking about profile pictures on LinkedIn, and she was saying, some people say, oh no, I don't want my photograph on my profile for the simple reason, oh, I'm too fat or I'm too thick. He says, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we all have our flaws. So as much as that, and I think as well, the beauty of live video and the beauty of online video is that people will see your passion as well when you start to talk about your chosen subject. If you know what you're talking about, my God, it can be so powerful.
Exactly, we as human beings, we rely on so many senses to determine and judge the value of content. While people are listening to this, they're listening to the quality of our voice. They're listening to the energy. If this was in video, they'd be looking at the tilt of our head or our eyebrows, and they'd be looking at how we're physically, the physical way that we're presenting ourselves and the energy, whether we're leaning forward or leaning back, whether we're distracted. We look to all those things to help us determine the value of the content. And in this world, kind of this ADHD world where we need to make assessments so quickly. I'm not saying that's a good thing that we need. It's really in our best interest to put our content together and deliver it in such a way that it's easy for people to make those decisions and to build those relationships. And video, and you know what? Adding your face to the video, the style of video we do with just, the screencasting with the face on screen. That's a big part of the success of our channel. I don't think I'm the best looking guy in the world. But,
I know you are, Steve. Yes, you are.
There we go. But seeing my face on the screen gets people to know me faster. They get comfortable with me more quickly. And, it's as good for me to, if somebody watches one of my videos, to say, I don't like him and not watch it again, as it is to say, I like him and continue to watch me.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we want to build ultimately we want to get people on our mail list. Ultimately, we want to get people into our programs. And if people have determined that they don't like you, then that's fine. That's fine. Let's spend our energy on people who will like us. There's more than enough people out there in the world for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And, we were talking earlier on there about, webinars and stuff like that. Maybe you might speak a bit about that as well.
Well, I'm still a huge fan of webinars. I know that they've become a little less popular in this day and age with the streaming video and the fact that people like to deliver some of the same content in a Facebook Live or in a YouTube Live or Instagram Live setting. But the thing about webinars that still makes them so valuable to the online marketing community and the social marketing community is the fact that there's a commitment on your audience's part to submit their name and email address so that you can contact them and you can follow up. The issue that I have with doing putting my best content on a Facebook Live or something like that is where's the hook? Yeah. How do I create a call to action, or how do I leverage the relationship with the people that are part of that webinar? At the start of last year, this year, at the start of 2017, we committed, my New Year's resolution was to do a webinar a week, which is a huge undertaking.
It's a huge.
We call it Webinar Wednesday, and we committed to do it every week. Now, with vacation schedules and holidays and all that sort of stuff, we didn't hit doing a webinar every week. And I knew we wouldn't, but we're going to be doing our 41st webinar this week. And we'll ultimately get 42 done this year. So there's only 12 weeks in the year that we didn't get a webinar, a live webinar delivered. So for me, the energy to create 12 or a weekly webinar has been a lot of work, but the engagement from the community has been profound. We started out with 500 to 600, 700 people registering and 150 to 200 people signing up. We're now regularly, if it's a productivity webinar, getting between 1,000 and 1,500 people signing up and 300 to 500 people in the room. And if we're doing it on social marketing, we're getting between 800 and 1,100 people sign up, and we're getting about 400 people in the room.
That's amazing.
Which, if you're reaching that many people on a weekly basis, it goes to show. And everybody tells, if you listen to the kind of the popular social marketing space, webinars are getting more. It's increasingly difficult to get people to come out to webinars. People are not showing up. Then they're turning to all sorts of automated webinars and other ways to try and get their webinars out there without them being as much work and as time consuming. But if you take from what we've done from our journey on this, I think there's some really important things. First of all, trust is so important. And so many people that deliver webinars undermine the trust of the community by faking that it's a live webinar, or by saying that they're going to teach something, but then really selling something instead of teaching it, all those sorts of things. With our webinars, we very seldom sell anything. We do a little pitch every week. We have a Patreon community that supports Dotto Tech, and we make sure that we pitch that, but it's like a 40-second pitch in the middle of the webinar to let people know about, how, and there's benefits attached, to joining up. Very seldom is it commercial. It's always training. It's always, I've obviously put a lot of work into developing the content. And if I say I'm going to teach you how to do A, B, C, when you sign up for the webinar and come into the webinar, I teach you how to do A, B, C. I don't say, here's A, and if you want to learn B and C, you got to buy my program. So those, if you could reach 400 to 500 people a week live, and over 1,000 people that are signing up to indicate an interest in a topic, that I think webinars are far from being done, but they take a real commitment. They take thick skin, because technically the technology still fails us on a regular basis. And typically speaking, your audience blames you instead of the technology when that happens. But at the end of the day, I still think that they are probably the best way for social marketers to really grow a community and to really do solid calls to action when you've got people in the room with you and you can actually tell them or ask them to do something.
Yeah, and I think I've always said to myself, anytime you're talking about a webinar and you're doing a webinar, I think it has to be of value, and people start to see if you go on to a webinar, all of a sudden this person says, I'll show you A, but if you want B and C, you're going to have to sign up to my program or whatever. People soon understand that and they say, oh, well, I won't bother looking at that, because obviously that's just another selling mechanism for this guy. As you say, if you're not true and if people don't trust you, it's really just not going to work. It's of no value to anybody.
And the other thing is respecting your and your community's time. And I find this to be something that often doesn't happen in a webinar, where people will put on a 2-hour webinar, they'll try and create some, and they'll be doing it live, and they'll be working ponderously through some slideshow live. When we do our webinars, one of the things that I look at them as a broadcast. I take my television background and I look at them and I script them tightly like a broadcast. And one of the things that I do with almost every single webinar I deliver is I deliver it in a style that's a hybrid webinar, where we open live, welcome people into the room, do our little administrative chat, letting people know what's happening, what's coming up. But then when I'm into the meat of the content that I deliver, I have pre-recorded that and edited it, uploaded it to a streaming service. And so I stream that through into the webinar feed. Now that could be seen as a little bit cheating. Some people might say, well, you're not actually delivering live then, Steve. No, I'm not. But what I've done is I've taken 25 or 30 minutes of content, compressed it, made it as information dense as possible. In other words, there's not a lot of stumbling around. I've made it look a lot more appealing. My face is on screen. The whole time that's running, I'm still there. I'm in chat. I'm answering the low-hanging fruit questions. Again, increasing the information density that we've got within that hour, so delivering as much value as possible. Respecting your audience's time is paramount. So that way there, in about an hour webinar, we can deliver more content in a more compelling fashion, make it that much more valuable, and we're still honoring the fact that it's live and we're there. Once the video finishes, I answer whatever questions we have live that are left, and that's our webinar. That's the format that we've developed. And when you stop and think, if there was 100 people in your webinar room and you're ponderously going through a slideshow and you're there for an hour for content that you could have easily delivered in, say, 20 minutes, if if you just take a mean average, what's it worth? We'll say it's worth $50 an hour is every person's time out there. You've just taken $5,000 out of the economy, the world economy, for people to listen to you yammer on. Yeah. Whereas you could have done it for $2,000 if you'd made it in 20 minutes. When you start multiplying that to 1,000 people in the room, suddenly it's a significant amount of productivity that you're pulling out of the economy to listen to you. So it really, you should pay attention to what you're delivering and respect your audience's time as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And then the other side of that is I agree with you in regards to, pre-recording the training part of it or whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, if you're doing this live, you're not going to be able, unless you have a team around you, you're not going to be able to answer those questions or them in that chat room as well, because it's physically impossible, much as you can do. You know what I mean? You can't concentrate on 5 or 6 different things at the one time.
And this is why a lot of people look for the webinar replay. And we send out our replay. We always upload our replay to YouTube. And I tell people you can watch it at double speed once it's being played back on YouTube, just like this podcast. People can listen to it at double speed, right? And it's still very legible. You can still understand everything that's being said. But again, you're compressing the amount of time, respecting the amount of time. That's the only thing that we can't make more of, right? So respecting the amount of time is a huge factor. The other thing that I always recommend when you do a webinar is never, ever do it solo, right? Always make sure you have a producer. I run mine like I would run a live radio or a live television show. So I've always got a producer. So the content expert can concentrate on the content that they're delivering and making sure that the value is being delivered there. And the producer can take care of all of the technical details and all of the the people who can't connect and are complaining in the chat room and all of those sorts of things. So you've got all of that covered off as well.
For anyone that's starting out doing online videos, in this day and age, everyone has their mobile device or whatever that they can start recording on it. But where would be a good starting place for someone who's just starting out to do sort of even recording and just recording online?
When you're starting to look at putting together your kit, in my mind, the most important thing to set up first and to set up well is your audio. Here's the thing. You're a podcaster. You certainly have an appreciation. People will watch poor quality video that has good audio. They won't watch good video that has poor audio. Our ears are more sensitive organs than our eyes are, and they're far less forgiving. So setting yourself up, if you're going to invest any money in your setup, make sure you have good audio right out of the gate. And that's the basis for all streaming media, as far as I'm concerned. Once you've got a good audio setup, that could be just like a USB mic. The ATR, what is it? The 2200 is under $100. It'll get you by. It's not as good as my setup or your setup perhaps, but it'll be 80 to 90%, and probably the average person won't be able to tell the difference. Once you've got good audio set up, then having a webcam of some sort. If you're going to record on your desktop, having a decent webcam rather than the built-in cameras that are in most notebooks or most all-in-ones. So even just the Logitech C920, that's still the camera I'm using. I've just ordered their new 4K camera. I don't know if it's going to be any better, but somehow or other, I doubt it's going to be much better.
Yeah,
for what we do.
They are a fantastic camera. I have it here myself. I think they're they're just phenomenal.
It's available for under $100 US, always on Amazon, and you'll typically find it on sale for half that.
Exactly,
and that's still the camera I use. Most of my colleagues use it. But if you are going to invest, once you're kind of the next stage is invest in some good studio lighting. Invest in some lighting so that you can have good natural quality light if you're going to have your face on camera. And so from Amazon, you can get a little umbrella lighting studio, continuous lighting setup for again under $100, and that makes all the difference in the world as far as the quality of video that you have. As far as the editing tools, I just use ScreenFlow. I'm on a Mac and I use ScreenFlow. It's a $100 program. It does everything I need. If you're on Windows, you got to spend a little bit more. You got to buy Camtasia, but that's still $300, and it'll do everything you ever want to do as far as recording and editing your video and allowing you to do some screencasting as well, which is the easiest way. The term screencasting is a little confusing to people too. People think screencasting is just recording and playing back your screen. Screencasting, as far as I'm concerned, should be called desktop video. It's using your desktop computer as a production studio.
Yeah.
And anything you can see on your computer screen can be part of that video. And that's where the term screencasting really should come from, as far as I'm concerned anyways. So any video that you've imported from your DSLR, from your iPhone, or from your Android phone, or you found on the web, anything can be incorporated in the video you produce. And that's a pretty powerful, that gives you some pretty powerful options.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I've started using ScreenFlow. I actually watched one of your videos, one of your tutorials on it, and I just said, yeah, that's the one to me. And I got it, and And like that, after watching your video, I was able to get around it. And then, you start investigating, you start looking at it, and you start saying, right, well, what can I do? What does it do with this? And all the different options. So it really is, it's a fantastic tool from basics up to advanced, really is. There's so much you can do with it. I didn't realize there was so much on it. So it really is.
No.
It's
you can do.
It's well worth it. It's so well worth it. Well worth it. So listen, Steve, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you as always, and hopefully we'll see you back in Ireland in the not too distant future.
Oh man, it won't take much to get me to come over.
So how can people get in contact with you and reach out to you if they're looking? So maybe you can give some details on that.
On all the social platforms, I'm at Dotto Tech, or just visit dottotech.com, and we're there. And there's lots of opportunities to sign up for our newsletter and to hear more about what we do, including our weekly webinar series.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, Steve, as I said, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It was a real pleasure, and thanks for such fantastic tips as well. All right.
I've enjoyed visiting with you, Alan.
No problem. Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Betcha.
See you then. Bye. So my thanks to Steve for coming on the show today. Really, really fantastic tips there, and so insightful about online video marketing and all the tips and the tricks as well about it. And don't forget, if you want to find out more information about Steve, you can log on to his website at dottotech.com, and you can also find him on all the social media channels. If you just type in Dotto, you'll find him definitely. This has been the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy. And don't forget, if you do like to find out any information about our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at www.compassmedia.ie/Social Media Talks podcasts. You can also find out information as well about all the services that Compass Media provide through digital marketing, social media management, and social media training as well, on the website as well. I've been Alan Hennessy. As I said, this has been the Social Media Talks podcast. So on the next time we see you, have a great week, and we look forward to your company next week again. On the next time, as I always say, be social.
Social Media Talks podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.